The USS Cerritos goes to Pakled planet to negotiate a ceasefire. Armis wishes he had someone to torture, and a Pakled does something unspeakable in Airlock 17. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Today we are joined by Mr. Don Crandall. He's got a lot of interesting things to say. You hear him mentioned on this show all the time, but did you know he also pitched an episode to Deep Space Nine back in the day? Don Crandall, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
My name's Ryan T. Husk. Today we are doing a review of Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 6, The Spy Humongous. Fun play on words there. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys want to find out the episode that Don pitched to Deep Space Nine before we get started on this? Just real quick. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'd like to know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, this was way back in 93, 94. Hollywood almost never does this. Star Trek was taking pitches without requiring an agent or to be in the Writers Guild. And so I took full advantage of that and wrote a few scripts and submitted them. The one that they held on to for a long time, months, was called Dying Time. And just in a nutshell, it was kind of an apocalyptic story about how things went really, really, really bad for the station, Deep Space Nine, and Bajor. And so a future Sisko and a future Kira come back in time to the present day on Deep Space Nine and replace their younger selves. I think they knocked them out and just hid them away. And their plot is to assassinate this Bajoran politician who's going to run for president and just make things really, really bad. I think there's definitely some inspiration from Stephen King's The Dead Zone there. But yeah, you know, they held on to that for a while. And I got this call months later saying, after months of careful consideration, we have decided not to buy your script. And so that, you know, my heart sank. But as a consolation, they invited me down to the Paramount lot to do a formal pitch session with Ronald D. Moore. Who is, of course, one of the big writers in the Star Trek canon there. So, yes, it was in the Star Trek building. You know, it was a lot of fun. And I remember so odd to see, and Cirroc, you may remember this if you've ever been in Ronald's office, but he had a big Darth Vader helmet. Like it might have been an actual prop from the movie, and it was in a glass case. But there I was pitching for Star Trek. And there's this big Star Wars item there to look at. But yeah, I pitched several ideas to him. He gave me constructive criticism. He didn't just say, no, I don't want that. You know, he told me why he couldn't get these, buy these ideas from me. One of them ended up being remarkably similar to next week's episode, you know, just my luck. But in the end, he didn't. Yeah, in the end, he didn't purchase anything, but it was a great experience. I was only 25 at the time, and yeah, just a lot of fun. You know, I still kept a lot of stuff, pitch letter, and I've got notes from Lolita Faggio. I think she's been on this show. Yeah, and from Ronald D. Moore, and you know, they gave me a series Bible and sample scripts. So yeah, just a really fun experience, especially coming right out of college.
So not only do they listen to you, but then they also send you away with like parting gifts and say, hey, keep up the good work. Here's some help to help you further along your career and your path. That's so cool. What did Lolita say in her notes? Anything of note?
Oh, it's, you know, she would tour the conventions, and this is how I found out about it. She apparently would hold workshops for the writers' submissions. I didn't attend any, but I definitely saw her a couple of times on stage. And yeah, so she ended up sending out a lot of the letters to the unsolicited scripts or the spec scripts and signed it, and just kind of giving you basic info on how to go about it. And I remember like a really interesting note was there is Real Trek, which is the TV shows and the movies, And there's Trek fiction, they called it, which was the books and the comics and the games, you know, and they were very very strict about don't put anything of Trek fiction in your scripts because they're not canon. You know, so it was just really interesting. People are still arguing about canon to this day, but this was way back in the 90s we were talking about it. Yeah.
Well, unless you're Mike McMahon, then you can sneak in some stuff from the books into Lower Decks, right? You've got a couple things in the past.
Yeah.
Well,
they're under new management, so they can kind of break the old rules.
It's funny when you were saying that, Don, you said they gave me the Bible and this is canon. I'm thinking the Bible and canon, like
there you go.
There's a lot of those references in this business here.
It's canonical, and it's the series Bible. Right? I know. It's a little religious reverence there for Star Trek. Huh?
Did they also gave you the Psalms and the Leviticus too, right?
That's right.
They gave you some things.
Bajoran Vedic handed me that personally. Yes.
All right. Well, speaking of which, let's talk about today's awesome episode entitled "The Spy Humongous." Usually, Don Crandall at like 1 a.m. on Wednesday night, Thursday mornings, Don is messaging me all of these things, you know, that we may have caught, we may have missed. He's just saying, okay, this is from the animated series. This is from that. This is because he knows I've got like kind of a hole in my head where the original series knowledge is supposed to be. Animated series, I've got original series. So he's always kind of whispering in our ear and giving us some good tidbits. But it felt like this episode had hardly any references, right?
You're right. Yeah. Of all the episodes for me to show up on here, it probably had the fewest Easter eggs.
Yeah.
You know, and I was thinking like, because they were going through all these artifacts, and I was thinking, is that from the animated series or the original series? And I kind of looked some of them up and looked at your Facebook group and the comments, and these were like new items. So you're right about that.
Yes, Cirroc,
Easter eggs.
I don't know if you got the same feeling I did, but when they were going through all of these toxic goops and this and that and all that, I kept thinking, my first thought was to the first one was, oh, is this a reference to something? No, I don't remember that. Maybe it's original series. And then the second one, and then the third one, and the fourth one. And I was like, wait, have they just, they're not referencing anything? Oh, there was the nanobots, which was like the nanites. Or also like Borg stuff.
Nano probes and nanites. And interesting, they called them nanobots this time.
Yeah. So other than that, though, I thought that there was like this golden opportunity. I assumed they were all going to be things that we recognized and we know, but none of them. So I don't know, Cirroc, when you were watching those, did you assume that those were going to be references to previous episodes, or did you just figure they're just pulling out silly things?
No, I thought there were references. Like when Tendi got swallowed up by that giant slug and then pooped out, I thought that's got to be from something. I know that it's got to be from somewhere. But because I don't really get the references in general, then most of them fly right over my head because I don't recognize the alien or I don't know what ship they're talking about. So sometimes those references just fly over my head. So I'm usually not getting the references anyways, but because they have done so many along the way on this show, I just take it for granted that there's just a bunch that I'm missing. So I automatically assume that each episode has a whole bunch of them stuffed in there. But I would say that maybe, and this is a guess now, this is not me having any knowledge, but maybe this episode was a submission type episode or written, wasn't maybe written in the same fashion as the other ones that have so many references. Maybe those kinds of episodes are written in a more of a group format, everybody, all the writers together in the room and throwing these ideas around. And maybe this was an episode that was written individually by one or two writers and not really done in the same setting. That's my guess. I just don't know why they would deviate from what they've been doing pretty much this whole time.
Yeah, they might just have been like, hey, just to change it up and keep us guessing all the time, because it worked on me. I just assumed it took me a few before I realized that these are not things that we recognize, especially because when Boimler or whomever would have a cure for it, when something would happen to somebody and they'd be like, oh, you just rubbed this stuff under their nose or whatever. I was like, is that a thing? Like it felt like they were referring to something, but they weren't, including the scorpion thing.
Maybe we're seeing a change in the way the show is presented. I mean, I could be eating my words next week, but maybe they're just deciding, hey, let's kind of ease down on the Easter eggs and the fan service and just kind of do our own thing, kind of give Lower Decks its own identity, because it is so reliant on the Easter eggs. I think, in 3-4 years, we're going to remember those Easter eggs where we may have forgotten the plot or the guest characters, but maybe this was an experimental episode. We'll see how the rest of the season goes.
Interesting. Yeah, because it felt like there were 4 plot lines going on, right? There was Freeman and Shax on the planet. There were the 3 lower deckers cleaning up all the mess. What did they call that? What did they call that day? Trash day.
ACD.
Yeah,
anomaly consolidation day duty.
Yeah. So there were those 3 doing that. There was Boimler in the red shirts, which sounds like a 50s band. And there was and then there was the Temerian. I can't remember the Temerian's name. And
they were just looking for that spy.
Exactly, looking for the Pakleds spy. So there were what's the Temerian's name?
Rumdar.
Oh, Rumdar is
was that it?
He was the spy Pakled.
Yeah,
the spy Pakled.
Yeah, the Temerian is the guy that the Temba, his arms open guy. And he did have a great line where he's like, you getting Kzinti when he pulled back the veil vibes from this guy? Because, everything is like the way the Temerians talk, as we learned in Darmok, Next Generation, everything that they say is in metaphors and past histories and stories and stuff. But he's got his universal translator, so he can kind of control it, except for in that first episode where he was introduced and it wasn't quite working. And so that was also a good gag. So that's kind of a reference when every time he goes back into that poetic type talk, but that's less of a reference. That's more of a reference to just previous episodes at this point, because now he's been back. And they never explained how he went from being a stuffed animal guy or whatever, a puppet guy, into
a puppet.
Yeah, back into
normal. Restore him on screen? Yeah.
I think so.
Well, they also didn't explain how Shax came back, right? So
they sure did.
It's just kind of a given. They just go with it,
Yeah.
Kayshawn, that's his name. Kayshawn.
Yeah, because one of the episode which introduced him was Kayshawn, and then something.
Yeah,
it had his name in the title. I remember. He's
Kayshawn, his eyes open. You were saying, Cirroc?
No, they did do a Captain Janeway reference. I mean, that was kind
so
of
good.
They kept doing that one. So they had one reference, at least the one that I could catch without having a deep knowledge of everything. But, they did mention Janeway a couple of times.
Yeah.
And they did mention Riker in this episode. Again, Riker seems to be getting the most non-appearance and appearance mentions. He's always,
if you combine them.
He's pretty much the recurring regular guest star on this show. He's always getting a reference, and this time they mentioned extra room in his pants
for his legs.
For his legs. Okay, yeah. But the writing is still clever, and that's what carries the show, in my opinion. The comedic writing is still clever. They still get their little jokes in here and there, and I think that's what carries the show ultimately. Does Riker still play the trombone? And the guy goes on to say, "Yeah, because I wish I learned how to blow something brass." Like, and those kind of jokes, like they're not lost on me, and I'm sure not on you, Ryan, either.
What? So mentioning the non-appearance mentions, let's see who has the most non-appearance mentions by my count. I mean, the Enterprise, you guys, they've mentioned the Enterprise 7 times already. Okay, and now if you want to go by people, Kirk has the most with 5. Spock has 4. Picard, Riker, and Data have 3, unless I've missed some. Janeway's got 3 now. So those are the leaders, and the Titan, if that counts as 1. But yeah,
okay,
they do love their old school people.
Well, the show is, it really caters to fans of the original series, Next Gen,
and the animated
Voyager.
series.
And the animated series. But I was talking to Ryan, I was like, Deep Space Nine needs some love on this show. It got a little bit last week when they had the Deep Space Nine model, and they mentioned Jadzia and Ezri Dax, little figures
Quark
in there. But and Quark, yeah. But yeah, we definitely need some more. Mike, if you're watching, we need some more Deep Space Nine love on this show.
Oh, he's watching. He said he's only missed one of our reviews, but he said he'll go back and watch it.
No, he's watching. Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that it does need a little bit more DS9 because they have been Next Generation heavy and also the original series kind of heavy, but mostly Next Generation, I would say. Especially because they've tied in Boimler and Riker as their storylines and characters have had so many interactions. So that's one thing I would agree with you on. But maybe they're taking, like you said, and maybe they're deviating from just even doing so many references and trying to create their own identity. My question for you guys is, because I don't know the answer to this, is the animated series and including this show, is that considered canon?
Yeah, that's a good question, because here's the DVD, and even in the booklet that comes with it, they ask that question: is this show considered canon?
Yeah. And
at least 15 years ago or so, when the DVD came out, they didn't have a straight answer. It kind of depends on who you talk to. And they also pointed out that apparently Gene Roddenberry disliked some of the movies so much that he did not consider them canon. It's all in this.
Really?
If you can get your hands on this old DVD, the animated series. But yeah, I think that certain elements may be considered canon, like species that make their debut in the animated series and maybe show up later. Got a lot of them, of course, in Lower Decks. Maybe certain basic storylines. Maybe the Spock episode Yesteryear. That's the one where he goes back in time. I think people kind of cherry pick from the animated series to see decide what is canon and what is not.
I thought that it was considered canon, and then at some point they said no, it's no longer canon. And then they brought it. It's kind of like the Pluto of Star Trek, right? The animated series, like Pluto, they're like, it's not a planet anymore. Okay, now it's a planet, and all this kind of stuff where they go back and forth. And as far as the books, I just look at it kind of almost like ingredients you have in your house that aren't officially in the instructions for how to bake a cake. For example, you've got those instructions. This is officially how do you make this cake. Now, you have these caramel chips instead of chocolate chips if you want to add those in, but that's not necessarily in the recipe. So there's like all the official stuff, and the books are not technically official, but they do pull those ideas oftentimes. But yeah, it's nothing in books or comics or anything is official, only what's been on the screen.
Well, as I was saying, like Star Trek is, of course, under new management now with Kurtzman and CBS/Paramount, and so it, they can do whatever they want. At least I just remember, back in the 90s, they said the books and the games and the comics were not canon at all. But apparently when Roberto Orci, one of the writers of the first two J.J. Abrams films, he was supervising the comic books, the Kelvin Timeline comic books. And in interviews, he was saying these are official canon. And he would kind of build up to the next film and introduce little elements or character or two who would then show up in the following film. So yeah, it's all different right now. I don't know if there is a definitive answer what's canon and what's not at this time.
Okay, but the Kzinti are canon because we saw them in the animated series, and this show makes me want to rewatch the animated series more than any other series. Those, for some reason, that's kind of like the little pet project, that the animated series is so fun. And there was this really cool reference they did, and Don, you caught this too, so the Kzinti, Cirroc is that cat-like guy that was part of the red shirts, but he's kind of got like weird ears, so it's a different race than the Caitians that the Doctor is, right?
Yeah.
And
Ta'ana, right?
Yeah. And in the animated series, they walk around like hunched, like they walk around all hunched. And so when he was instructing Boimler to stand up straight, when he went hunched and said, "Look, you look like this," they made him like an exact replica of what they looked like in the animated series. So it was a fun little nod. So that was a really good Easter egg. I would consider that, because basically he was doing an impression of the animated series cats. What were they called? Kzinti.
Kzinti, yeah. And they mentioned them on Picard, right? Riker says the planet that he's on is having a problem with the Kzinti attacking. And yeah, that was I think the first official reference in a live action Star Trek of the Kzinti.
I'll see if I can pull up what I guess this is a good enough picture. But
yeah, they're just supposed to be like, the scary monster alien of the week.
Yeah, they're like hunched over and their ears are like this. And so when he hunched over, he's like, "You look like this now." He was just basically looked just like that,
Yes. Yeah. So that's crazy that you said Riker mentioned the planet I'm on is being attacked with the Kzinti.
Right.
Because it means at that point too, they were recalling this animated series and bringing that back to life on Next Generation at whatever point in time that was. So here we have a continuity of writers digging through the crates to find old hits to recycle. And I think that's also something that's uniquely Star Trek, right? For them to reference themselves over and over again, and basically once they create a race or they create a planet or an idea, they go back to it over and over again. I think I was reading somewhere about the Maquis having a significant role in Voyager.
Totally.
I haven't seen Voyager yet, but I just know that I read somewhere that the Maquis are significant players in the Voyager. And so once again, when Star Trek has created something, they keep it alive in this, not even multi-episode, but multi-television show, right? It literally, the Vulcans go from here to there, the Romulans go from here to there, the Klingons continue to go. So they're creating this entire universe of people and characters that they stick with and continue to, flush out.
Kind of the geopolitical overview of Star Trek. It was nice.
Right.
A lot of things from Next Gen carried over into your show, Deep Space Nine,
right,
and even into Voyager. Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to get some more, connectivity with these current streaming shows. But yeah, it's nice, the Kzinti and Picard, and then the Kzinti here on Lower Decks. They're doing that. We're seeing Orions, a lot of Orions right now, huh?
And I love that.
Decks, you have Tendi, and the
Well, I like that
Orions
they've
were
got the
villains
Orion
on
Syndicate, and
Discovery.
there's so much to them, and I really wish we would explore them more, because they're like this big, you know, like the Klingon Empire doesn't just have Klingons, and the Federation doesn't just have humans. The Orion Syndicate doesn't just have Orions, and I always wanted to go and explore the other worlds within these empires. We know the Romulan Star Empire also has Remans, who, by the way, the Reman ships are Scorpions. There's Scorpion 1 and 2 and Voyager. So that's kind of a reference when Tendi became a Scorpion, right?
Yeah. The Orions are in a lot of the novels, if you ever have a chance to read them. And whenever they need like a gangster character or a thug or a crime syndicate, they'll bring in the Orions. And it's interesting because now some of the people who have worked on the novels, like David Mack and Kirsten Beyer, are, you know, significant people working on these new shows. So I think that, they may well be drawing from the novels, like Ryan was talking about earlier.
Let's give a shout out to David Mack too, by the way. Sorry, real quick, a shout out to David Mack. He's been a guest on our show. We love him. He's awesome. We love that he's writing stuff for the new iterations of Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
I just was asking Don about the DVD that you were referring to. What DVD is that? What's the title of that DVD that's behind you?
Oh, okay. Star Trek the Animated Series. So this is just the DVD that came out maybe 15 years ago. It's got all the episodes. I think there's 22.
Yeah.
And it's got in it the liner notes that talk about how Roddenberry didn't consider certain films canon, and, you know, is this show canon? So, but yeah, you know, just check it out if you have a chance. The little notebook in it. I know that Ryan loves he loves TAS, but in this they're talking about is this show canon or not? I think it still remains a mystery. It's just depends on whoever you talk to. Yeah.
I think that for per capita or pound for pound, TAS gets mentioned the most, because they only had 22 episodes, half hour, right? Okay. So Lower Decks, when this season's over, they'll be at 20 episodes. That's almost, you know, identical to the animated series, but they've got so many references to the animated series we keep catching. And what a tragedy that it only had 22 episodes. I think it was 2 seasons. I think it was like the first season was like 16 episodes and the second was 6 or something weird like that. And I was hoping that DVD that you had would have like bonus footage or lost episodes, because I really think it's a real tragedy that there wasn't more. I liked it. It was fun.
It's got a making of video, and I know they interview Nichelle for it. But no lost episodes, unfortunately.
Okay. So back to this episode.
Yeah.
And the Pakleds, one thing that's not consistent is they've kind of been reimagined in a way physically from how they were in Next Generation and in Deep Space Nine and Quark's Bar. They make them kind of big and burly now, whereas before they were always burly, but they weren't necessarily like big. They were kind of hunched and you know, halfway decrepit, you know, and like kind of, you know,
out.
Yeah. But now they're like, there's these big soldiers. So, but I think they kind of had to do that to make them more imposing than what they used to be, because they used to be basically just a joke.
Right. You know who they remind me of? The Kazon, because the Kazon Cirroc were the big villains in Voyager the first couple of years. They were the scavenger race who they apparently didn't, you know, create any of their own technology or weapons. They either stole their weapons or they scavenged or salvaged it from derelict ships, and they were I get there was nothing unique about them, so they were Borg proof. The Borg deemed the Kazon, you know, just untouchable. We can gain nothing from the Kazon. There's no uniqueness there.
That's Aaron as a Kazon right there.
And Aaron played a Kazon. But you know, it reminds me of what they now with the Pakleds, of what they did with the Kazon, with they're a scavenger race and they are stealing technology. But I think they're interesting. I always wanted to see more of the Pakleds. They only did one episode of Next Gen where they featured them, and like you said, they do appear. It's kind of in the background on Deep Space.
Yeah, they never have any lines in Deep Space Nine. They're always just some background thing where you go, "Hey, there's a Pakled back there." It's usually just two of them sitting at the bar. Barflies.
Right.
Yeah.
And they kind of reference them in
like dumb characters because they kind of like caveman dumb.
Oh, they're so dumb. That's the whole point. Is that they're just so dumb. And basically in the Next Generation, they run into these guys that can barely communicate because they're so dumb. They're just like, our ship doesn't go, your ship goes, we need help, or something like that. So Next Generation crew feels bad for them, and they're like, okay, well, we'll help these idiots out. And these idiots ended up playing a trick on them where they pretended like their ship wasn't working to like steal their warp core, steal something important. And so of course
Geordi, they kidnapped Geordi.
Yeah, and you make our ship go and all that. And that's just kind of the trick that they play. They're these idiots that somehow fool people because everybody thinks these guys are so dumb that they trust them, and they actually pull the wool over their eyes. So that's what they're still doing, here. Yeah. People are still falling for their tricks, but less, like as you saw Kayshawn and the other fellow there, they're kind of like, they're onto the guy. They're like, hey, look, he's trying to trick us. We know that's what these guys do. That's kind of their thing. Yeah. Kayshawn and Ransom.
Interesting idea. They're kind of like a really low rent Borg where they're stealing weaponry, but they're actually they've got so much of it now. They're a real formidable force.
So we've waited long enough. Cirroc, what was your favorite line of this episode? Cirroc's favorite line.
My favorite moment was when Rutherford turned into the Ruthy Professor. I'm sorry, the Nutty Professor. But I'm glad you like that one.
I don't know if I did, but it made me laugh.
But no, my favorite line was when they were telling Boimler that he needs to be more like a captain, and he was giving a speech, and he was practicing giving a speech that would get everybody behind him. And so he says, I trust all of you, and he actually does a really good Riker speech. But prior to him giving that speech, they're like, I want you to say it like you're Riker. Speak from the heart, his heart.
Yeah.
And I like the way they threw that in there.
Yeah.
Not from your heart, from his heart. So that was one of my favorite lines. And the other line was, this is not a friendship. This is a starship.
Yeah. Are you a star? Or aren't you?
Yeah. Are you exactly.
Another good part along that storyline is when all the ensigns, the red shirts, step up like captains, and they start, like when the first guy goes up and he starts talking to the dude, and the dude's eyes get all big, like, okay. And then the next one comes up, the next one comes up, and they're all just giving like pep talks, which was, very funny. So we enjoyed that.
A funny moment.
Oh, and
yes.
Okay, Don, you would know this. When the Three Little Pigs book comes to life, and they say something like, I think maybe Tendi says, oh, it's another one of those books that comes to life thing.
Yeah.
I felt like, again, the theme of today's episode, I felt like this was a reference that I missed. Oh, Rumpelstiltskin, maybe. Deep Space Nine, Rumpelstiltskin. That was a book that came to life.
Yeah. And then also, it might be a really vague reference to the animated series Once Upon a Planet, where they had Alice in Wonderland, the Queen, and all of her soldiers come to life as they were like playing cards with heads on them, because anything you wish for comes to life, and that's of course a sequel to Shore Leave from the original series. But they had some Alice in Wonderland characters in that one, but I don't know. I mean, I really had to strain my brain this time and go, was that an actual callback? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Rumpelstiltskin maybe. Moriarty, but that was in a holodeck.
Right.
That's all I could think of.
I had a favorite line I wrote down. They say this who among us hasn't been pooped out by an alien creature?
Yeah.
Because we either pooped out or spit out, because I think we saw Boimler get spit out by a monster in the early first season, and we even saw on Discovery a Booker. Didn't he get swallowed by a big creature?
Yeah,
and
big worm
out?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
yes, he did.
Recurring. It's going to be a cliche at this point. You know? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another line too. I don't know, Ryan. You were probably about to say this one, but what's his name? Shax had a funny line when he told the acting captain there from the red shirt to clean up airlock 17. The Pakled did something unthinkable. I thought that was another funny line right there.
Right.
Yeah, and the way he delivered it was great. I mean, these voice actors, you could tell why they were chosen. Their voice acting is great. They really add a lot with the way that they say it. When he said unspeakable or unthinkable, he really just put in like disgust, like you'll never believe this.
Yeah.
I was also noticing Dr. Ta'ana, same thing, was she adds something when she speaks. I don't think she was in this episode, but a few episodes ago.
She was.
Okay, a few episodes ago when Tendi Roney was going to give her, her physical, and she was kind of changing her voice around. That's when I noticed. I was like, wow, she can really do a lot with her voice. She's doing a great job. But anyway, you had something, Don?
We had mentioned the red shirts. You know, they were like the cool guys in lower decks, and then the other guys were kind of the nerds. But that reminded me of one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. In Cirroc, it's you and Aaron. Is it called The Valiant?
Yeah. Valiant,
where you go over to that remote starship full of a very, very young crew.
And Courtney Pelton, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. But they're just like, too cool.
And they called themselves Red Squad, right?
Right.
Weren't they Red Squad?
Yep.
Exactly. Reminded me of that. And they kind of had that in Next Generation, right?
Nova Squadron,
where Wesley in Starfleet Academy, he just got caught up in the wrong crowd. They were the elite, they were the cool people, but then we turned out they were kind of shady and they were doing wrong things. So
what? The elites are never shady, Don. What do you bite your tongue? And that episode was called The First Duty. That's a really good one too. With the character Cito Gaston that came back later, and the character Nicholas Locarno, who later suddenly had a name change and became Tom Paris in Voyager. But that's a really big episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of that too. The Red Squad and Valiant as well. Yeah. So Don, that's a good pickup. I don't know if they made that on purpose. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it did feel like they were trying to make some kind of nod to that.
For sure.
Because especially because the guy who was the leader of this red shirts, he kind of had that same pompous, obnoxious leadership style that the Valiant Red Squad leader had. So there was a big similarity there, in my opinion, and just of their character overall.
Totally.
Tindy had a funny line at the end when Boimler was trying to make her laugh, and he ordered all that crazy stuff from the Replimat, and it just doused him and drowned him in a puddle of that food. And she started laughing, and I didn't get the word that she said, but she says that was such a waste of proteins.
I got that.
I didn't get the word that came before protein because I tried to rewind a few times. I couldn't understand what she was saying, humorous or something protein. But I thought that was a funny line too, because that's what makes her laugh is a waste of protein. It's like, it just goes, that's an insight to her kind of. Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah, that was a good one. And
material that they use.
Yeah, those are the kind of throwaway lines are the ones I enjoy the most because, like, okay, we get it, this guy's doing something big or this person's saying something hilarious, but every once in a while they do like a little throwaway line where you're like, that's what she's thinking about, with it. It's a waste of proteins. Like that.
Yeah,
that's what's going through her head. You can just dump it back in the replicator and just, you're all set. Theoretically, right?
Protein or something pre-composited.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something like that. Ta'ana was in this episode. She was the one caring for Rumdar, the Pakled, after he went into space. And she's like, I don't know how this guy got went from the vacuum of space, but oh well. And she walks away.
Yeah.
So that was funny.
I do want to cover a bit of Armis, because that was really great. They prank called Armis. Armis Cirroc was a character in the first season of Next Generation. I think like episode 22 or 23, right around there. From the episode Skin of Evil, which he mentioned. He said, I am the Skin of Evil, which was in reference to the episode title. He is actually, spoilers, earmuffs people, he's actually the guy that kills Tasha Yar, played by Denise Crosby. Right. So that was funny. Okay. You know, the whole thing was funny when he's like, I got nobody to torture or whatever it was. I wish I had someone to torture, and they had fun with him. So I think the Star Trek fans probably enjoyed that moment the most, because that is, he's forever in Star Trek lore as one of the only guys, one of the only entities that's ever killed a main cast member permanently. And what is he, this blob gelatinous mass? Like, is that what he is? Yep, that's it. He's
like kind of like this oil slick, and
with magic powers.
He's almost like
and
Odo,
he can change form.
Yeah, he just kind of wiggles around.
That's about as humanoid as he can appear. He's not quite as adept as Odo, but he's just a slime pool most of the time who takes slightly human form. And like Ryan said, he just loves to torture and lure people there to torment them and kill them.
Yeah, if he were any slimier, he'd sell cars.
Who'd have thought we'd ever see him again? But I think what Lower Decks does, one of the things it does best is it just takes some of the silliest things we remember about Star Trek, particularly the older ones. Like in this case, Armis was first season Next Gen, or the most outdated material, and they just really play with it and have fun, you know. So that's why we get a lot of animated series references, and you know, just the Pakleds were, like Ryan said, they were just kind of a joke when they were on Next Gen, and now they're really playing it up into something different. So just having fun with the silly aspects of Star Trek, the older Treks.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that blob character?
Armis.
Okay, no, full name. Is his last name Shimmerman?
There you go.
Thank you. That's all. That's all I want to do, Ryan.
Ryan's supposed to tell us
be like
jokes.
You, Ryan. I know.
Armis Shimmerman. All right, we'll take it. Do you have one, an Armis one for us, Don?
An Armis joke.
Like his last name could be Hammer. I don't know. We can get it.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave the bad jokes to you guys today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Did anybody catch when the Pakleds was like, do you want a rotten mush fruit? Like blob of mush fruit. Was that something that they've talked about in the past, or that was a new thing?
Yeah, I don't think so. I bet you the Ferengi would like that. They do eat some really, really foul things, don't they?
They're partial to grubs and worms and things like that. Mush fruit. Yeah, mush fruit. Who knows?
Rotten mush fruit.
I mean, that's the only way to do it. Well, we like curdled animal secretions, like milk and right. And we're like, cheese. We love that stuff.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think it was in a Star Trek novel. I think it was a novel, not one of the shows, but like they brought a Klingon to the Enterprise or something, and he was disgusted by cheese, you know, because it was this mold. It was,
Yeah.
this foul fungus mold that they were eating. He would just rather eat live
You should go to
animals.
France, dude. In France, whew, like the cheese actually has the mold layer around it, and they just cut off the mold part and then eat the part that's not really moldy yet, and then they, on their cheese plates, and then when they do that and they eat their fill, they put the cheese plate like back in the garage, or because it's super stinky, because they don't want to put it in the fridge, because in the fridge it doesn't, quote, ripen. So once they cut off the mold, they eat a little piece, they put it back out into the garage so that it can get remold, like get another new layer of mold on it for tomorrow. And then they're like, here comes the next layer. It's pretty hideous.
Oh, man.
We eat that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're just about out of time here. We do have to run. Don Crandall, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your knowledge. Normally we have like 50 references to go through, but this time we could actually just kind of talk about Lower Decks and not stress about everything we missed.
Plot and the characters this time. Yeah.
Also, you're an associate producer on a movie that's coming out real soon. Do you want to tell us about that before you go?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm an associate producer on a new true crime thriller. It's called, this is a mouthful, it's called Eileen Wuornos, American Boogie Woman. And it's a companion film to Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. It stars Peyton List from Cobra Kai and Tobin Bell from the Saw movies. October 8th. Watch for that on streaming platforms and Redbox DVD.
Has anybody noticed, by the way, that Peyton List, there are two actors with the exact name, Peyton List, with the exact same spelling, that basically came out at the same time. Like, I only heard the other Peyton List is a Star Trek actress. She was in Star Trek Picard. She played the character. What was Narissa? Yeah,
Narissa.
Rizzo, right?
And
so that's really
the other
weird.
Peyton List is on Cobra Kai. It's Tori,
blonde girl. Cool. So check that out, everybody. If you like Peyton List or Peyton List, make sure you check that out. Good job, Don. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right, guys. So that's about it. Everybody at home, leave us comments below. Tell us if you think the red shirts was in reference to Red Squad or Nova Squadron. I think it was. And tell us anything that we may have missed. Tell us your favorite moment. Was it when the Kzinti went like this? That was my favorite. Or was it when the guys kept calling Freeman Janeway? All kinds of goodies. Oh, real quick, I love the exteriors when they were at the very beginning, when they were arriving at the planet and everything was in golds and oranges. Their exterior shots are just so good. And I really wanted to make sure to say that before we go out, because they deserve big kudos there, I think.
And also, really quickly, they went back to the old format in this episode by actually having a little teaser and then running the credits and then going into the story, which they did not do in the episode before this. They actually went right to the credits. So they're switching things up on us every day. We don't know what we're going to get. It's a curveball, a changeup, bat ball. You never know.
You never know. Split finger, whatever. In the comments below, let us know what kind of ball you think it is. Anyway, thanks, Don Crandall, and we'll be talking to you next week for sure with all the cool Easter eggs that are coming up.
Let's hope there's more. Yeah, I mean, I think there will be.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, and everybody at home, always remember the 7th rule.